Ever imagine art could, like, actually heal a community? And we're doing this deep dive on Bubbling Up. It's a project, right?
Yeah.
And it mixes storytelling, racial justice, even AI, kind of wild,
Yeah.
right? We're talking like, picture this delicate bubbles just hanging in a gallery, each one holding someone's real experience with racial injustice.
Wow.
But here's the thing. These stories are going up in places that are mostly white. Make you think, huh, can art really bridge those divides, the ones around racial injustice? Let's find out.
What grabs me about Bubbling Up is like how ambitious it is. It's pushing for actual change, you know?
Right, right. It's definitely not your average art show.
Not at all.
We're going off some excerpts from this article about it. So imagine walking into a gallery soft light, but instead of paintings, it's these shimmery bubbles everywhere. Each one's got a story inside, someone's own experience with racial injustice. They submitted it to the project.
Huh.
And like we said, the artist, Grace G., her studio is called Healing Grace Studio, they're putting these installations in mostly white spaces on purpose. What do you think's up with that?
I think it's about, forcing a reckoning. That moment when people who might never encounter these stories, it's right there in their face. You can't look away. Bubbling Up makes racial injustice impossible to ignore.
They're like holding up a mirror,
Right.
to society.
Exactly.
But then here's where it gets really interesting. They add in artificial intelligence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's called Justice AI, made by Christian Ortiz. Now, AI can be kind of techie, so bear with me. Imagine, instead of just reading the story alone, Justice AI gives you background, like historical facts, stats, maybe even laws connected to that experience.
So, like, you're not just getting the one story, you're getting the whole...
A context, yeah.
Okay, got
It
it.
makes it hit different, right?
It has to.
And they even got these QR codes the article mentions built right into the exhibit. You scan one with your phone, bam. You're not just seeing art, you're getting this whole curated layer of info. Makes you think harder about it all.
It's making the invisible visible. Bubbling Up uses Justice AI to show you the stuff that's usually hidden, those systemic factors behind the individual stories.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, like, if we had that kind of context in our everyday lives, would we see the world differently? Would we notice those smaller things, those little injustices that we might usually miss? This project isn't just about taking in info, it's about sparking conversation.
Totally. And it's really effective at getting white participants to, well, the article calls it actionable allyship.
Okay, let's break that down. Actionable allyship. That's a powerful phrase. What's it mean in this situation with this project?
I think it means saying, yeah, this is messed up isn't enough. Bubbling Up is asking white people, what are you going to do about it?
It's about turning empathy into action.
100%.
And they actually encourage that right there in the exhibit. Imagine you read a story, you're feeling all those emotions, but then you get to write down your reaction, your thoughts, questions, maybe even what you're going to do about it. And then those responses, they become part of the art too, right alongside the original story.
Whoa, that's incredible.
Right.
It's like by including those responses, they're showing that dealing with racial injustice, it's on all of us.
It's a shared responsibility.
Yeah.
You don't see that every day, that call to action, especially with something this sensitive and complex. And that's where this mix of art and cutting-edge tech like Justice AI is so smart,
Absolutely. The article goes deeper into how that pairing works. It says Justice AI isn't just analyzing data, it's like shining a light on the historical stuff, the systemic stuff that we don't always see that contributes to racial injustice.
So it's giving you that missing piece, that aha moment, where individual stories connect to this bigger picture.
Yes,
It's about understanding that these aren't just one-off things, they're part of this deep-rooted system.
precisely. And by making this information easy to get, Bubbling Up lets people engage with these stories on a deeper level. It's not just about feeling empathy, it's about getting the root causes and feeling like you can actually do something to change things.
It's kind of wild, right? How something as simple as a bubble, all light and color, can hold so much weight. Bubbling Up makes us look past that, see those bubbles as like containers for stories, for real experiences, for the impact of racial injustice. And it goes even further than that. This whole idea of community healing, it's woven right in, isn't it?
Yeah. Even the name Bubbling Up, it hints at that, right? Like, think about it. A bubble starts tiny, hidden. Then you blow, it grows, floats up, becomes something beautiful, something everyone can see. Same way with these stories, these experiences of racial injustice. Kept quiet because of pain, fear. But when they're given the space to, bubble up, they can change things, heal things for people, for whole communities.
That's a powerful image, right? Giving a voice to the silence, bringing those experiences out in the open. And that's where Bubbling Up really shines. It's not just sharing the stories. It's about how people respond to them. Like we've been talking about, it really pushes white participants to go beyond just empathy into this actionable allyship thing.
Yeah, because it's one thing to say, oh, that's awful. It's a whole other thing to ask yourself, what am I going to do about it? And that's the core of it, of actionable allyship. It's about taking those feelings that understand it and turning it into something real, something you do.
Turning empathy into action.
Exactly.
And bubbling up actually gives you a way to do that right there in the exhibit. So picture this. You read a story, maybe about the microaggression someone deals with every day because of their race. You feel for them. Maybe you're angry, sad. But then the project, it's like, okay, now what? You're encouraged to write down what you're thinking, thoughts, questions, maybe even a promise to yourself that you'll call out those microaggressions when you see them. And those responses, they get displayed too, part of the art, right alongside this story that started it all.
Wow. So it's a conversation then, back and forth.
Yeah.
That's powerful. By putting them together like that, they're showing that this whole dealing with racial injustice, it's not about blame. It's about all of us realizing we got to be part of the solution.
We're all responsible.
Yeah.
Which isn't something you see every day at an art show, right? That call to action, especially with such a heavy topic.
Yeah.
And that's where I think this mix of art and the tech stuff, like the Justice AI, is brilliant.
Totally. Justice AI isn't just crunching numbers. It's showing you the stuff that's been hidden in the shadows, the history, the systems, the things that keep leading to racial injustice.
So it gives you that aha moment. You see how one person's story is part of this huge pattern.
Yes. And that understanding, that's what gives you power. You can go from just feeling bad to actually knowing what to do about it.
From feeling helpless, too.
To empowered. Like, you can make a difference.
And that's what's so important, right? Because it'd be easy to get overwhelmed by all this, feel like nothing can change. But bubbling up, it's like, no, we can change things.
Exactly. It's hopeful.
You know, it's kind of amazing how bubbling up can be about such a, serious thing. But it still leaves you feeling hopeful.
That's art for you. Right. It can handle the tough stuff, the painful stuff, but still leave room for hope. And bubbling up, they're using art to show the way towards healing, towards real change.
Totally. Like we've been saying, it's not just throwing information at you. It's not facts and figures. It's about connecting with people, really getting it. Instead of just a headline, you're in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
You know, you feel what they went through.
And that's what makes it so powerful. It cuts through all the noise, all the reasons people tune this stuff out. It's personal racial injustice. You can't ignore it after this.
It reminds you there's actual people behind the numbers, behind the stories. People live in this every day.
And it goes beyond that. Bubbling up doesn't just leave you heartbroken. It's like, okay, now what are you going to do?
Exactly. It takes you from that feeling of this is awful, but to what can we do about it?
And they mean it. It's not just a question. They've made a space for people to figure that out, to find others who want to change things too. Remember the article mentioned those events Healing Grace Studio does?
Yeah, the workshops, the panels, the talks all about racial justice, all about being an ally.
It's about building a community because taking on something like racial injustice, something so big, it takes all of us.
We're stronger together.
Right. It's about taking those individual voices, those stories, and using them to fuel something much bigger. And that's what's so great about bubbling up. It's proof that art can change the world, not just show it to us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, if our listeners only remember one thing, what do you hope it is?
I hope it's this. Even the small stuff matters. Listening to someone's story, learning about this, speaking up when you see injustice, it all makes a difference.
Beautifully said. And if you're interested, there's more to explore. Check out Healing Grace Studio online, read those stories for yourself. And most importantly, think about why you can do to heal and make things better right where you are. Because when each of us has the courage to act, that's how we make a real change. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep those conversations going and keep on digging deeper.